Hello and welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me on this glorious Tuesday. So, not only are the sales in Canada collapsing, the rental ship is sinking too. And I have lots of data to show you what's happening in that market as we speak. But first, let's get into some exciting news. Starting off with a message from my competitors. They do a little bit more business than me. Maybe this is why, but I believe in diversity of opinion. Not the kind of thing you'll hear me say in this market. But anyway, let's hear what they have to say.
It's the cheapest time to buy a single detached home in the history of Canada right now in the summer of 2025. It's gonna be, you're gonna wear this one. So, but yeah, I think the economy's teeter-tottering. Look, it's got so much resiliency. It's teeter-tottering on red hot. I think once all this, once this uncertainty comes, I think you're going to see something happening with rates and look out, right? Look out, people. This is the cheapest time to buy a single detached home in the history of Canada right now in the summer of 2025. Rates
I believe
and
it.
prices.
Yeah, I believe it. You got the time to buy now. I'm telling you, if you're going to regret not buying, just like people in the past.
So there you have it. If you don't buy now, you will regret buying, and it is the cheapest time to buy in the history of Canada right now, according to these people. Anyway, I'll let you make your own assumptions. Let's move on. From the economic long wave, Canada's hidden housing supply shock is already underway. Everyone's watching the rates in immigration. Few are watching death certificates. Canada is now seeing record high deaths, and that means homes are about to flood the market over the next decade quietly. Here's what the data shows. So we have in the black line, Canada total annual deaths and the exponential trend line. Of course, we do have a lot of the boomers now are dying off. And I love estate sales and power of attorney sales when they go to old age homes. They are usually my favorite homes. They don't look modern and like IKEA looking like a lot of the buyers like to look for when they're looking at pictures online, but they're in great neighborhoods, usually well maintained besides the decoration. And again, one of my favorite picks for my clients when we're out home searching. You might have seen this floating around the internet last week. Average Canadian family spent 42.3% of income on taxes last year, more than on housing, food, clothing combined. And yeah, look, taxes is the line on the top. Look at it just shoot up like, wow. So yeah, we're paying a lot of taxes. And I think everyone would realize that. Taxes are insane in Canada. I'm guessing other countries are following suit because of the expenses that governments have to incur. But yeah, you're paying a lot of taxes. And from Becca, I think I started following her right after I read this post. The longer I live in Ontario, the more disconnected I feel from the Canada I once knew. I understand that change is inevitable, but what I see now is unrecognizable, and it's not a place I feel proud to call home anymore. I don't know why, but yeah, a lot of people feel like that these days. They don't like change and the change that's happening right now. And it's not the Canada we used to have. From Patty B, Mountain Junkie Fish Bum. So Calgary peeps, we just lost our appeal for an eightplex being developed next door to our home. Windows and doors with clear views directly into our bedroom windows. Over 800 people wrote letters of opposition, yet our appeal was denied. We only think we live in a democracy. And one from Daniel Foch here, and this one hits close to home because I live in Niagara Falls, and Niagara Falls was one of the sites where we have lots of hotels. So we have lots of the asylum seekers being housed here, and I get calls all the time, and I know where they're coming from. They're coming from the asylum seekers because they're from certain parts of the world, and again, the very, very specific accents that call. And they're not Indian students, mind you. This is not what I'm talking about. But anyway, I don't want to mention countries because they're from all over the place. But federal government to stop funding hotel rooms for asylum seekers, IRCC says. Immigration Department says it will help those still in hotels find housing before program ends on September 30th. Again, I'm getting a lot of calls, and they don't like these people come from countries where this is a lot of money, $2,000, $2,500 for a place to live. Like, this is insane for them. But again, the government has been helping them, but they need to get integrated into society and the workforce and everything. Anyway, it's an expensive life in Canada. And last one here about rentals. Rents. Why are rents so high? 2018, Ford removed rent controls on new building. 2025 corporate landlords now being sued for price fixing using YieldStar software. So yeah, I've heard about this before, and there's this YieldStar, and it kind of analyzes rents and tells the landlords, these corporate landlords, where to set their prices. But a lot of people, or they're claiming that this is price fixing. So there's a lawsuit going on saying that they're in cahoots and it's anti-competitive. But let's look quickly at who these companies or corporations are that are in this lawsuit. So here they are. These are the defendants. We have RealPage, QuadReal, so a bunch of property management companies here, some big ones. But the one that caught my attention was RioCan Real Estate Investment Trust. RioCan, they do a lot of commercial properties, and I think they might have some big apartment buildings. But that was a big one in there. There's other ones that are big too. I think Tricon Residential Canada, but they're all pretty big, these guys. But RioCan was a big one. Now, keeping with the rental theme here, let's go into this statistical journey on rentals and whatever else I have included here. But I want to start off with the rentals.ca rent report. I read this every month. I actually include it in my analysis when I'm comparing house prices or mortgages compared with rental rates. And, there's the difference in there. It's about $1,000 right now. But they put out a great report, these guys. And anyway, they'll get credit on here. I'll leave the link in the description. But this is about asking rents, though. So I wanted to compare it to the actual leased prices or rent prices that once they've closed. So this is all, again, it's all based on asking rents. And this is for June, the latest place or the latest data here. They have data right across the country on this report, but we're going to stick to just Ontario here. And it's right now it's $23.58 is the average asking price. And it's down 2.5% from last year over year in Ontario. Now, when I'm using Ontario, I'm just using the TREB data, which is a massive amount of data. It's probably about 75% of Ontario. So it is very representative and very representative of Canada. Again, Ontario, the biggest market. So here we are looking at the actual TREB data. So again, rentals.ca asking price is down 2.5%. Ours is down 2.9 when you look at the actual listings that have leased out. And there it is. It's 2,900 as opposed to 25 or 2358. But they scrub their data, anything over 5,000, everything under, and they'll have 3 bedrooms. We have 4 bedrooms. So they're limited on their data. So it's not the same data source. This is why you're going to see differences in prices here. And here we have it. Properties listed for greater than 5,000 per month and less than 500 per month are removed from the sample. Similarly, short-term rentals, single-room rentals, and furnished suites are removed from the sample when identifiable. So again, they've scrubbed a lot of data out of this to get a more accurate representation of actual rent prices. So here is the average rent in Canada, year-over-year change, and you have all property types there, 21, 25. Again, this is Canada, and we want to compare how Ontario is faring. Is it doing better? Are prices going up or not going down as much, I should say? So there's 0 bedrooms. 0 bedrooms hilarious, right? Like here, you want to rent a 0-bedroom place? Any of those are like bachelor suites, obviously, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. But let's compare it to Ontario's data here. And here we have Ontario at the bottom. And we're just going to look at, we're not going to look at the prices, again, different data sets included, but we're going to look at the year over year. So again, 2.7% for all of Canada. Ontario was 2.5. But TREB data, actual leased data after they've been leased, down 2.9%, almost 3% year over year. 0 bedrooms. So bachelors are up 3%. Now it didn't have a lot. It was like 1,700 or something. So it was the lowest amount out of all the data. But then we get into 1 bedrooms down 4.4% year over year. 2 bedrooms down 3.8% from last June, and 3 bedrooms down 2.2% from last year. So we're seeing drops in almost all places except for the bachelor. But again, the bachelor was kind of skewed because there wasn't a lot of data there. So next up, we have the rentals.ca report when it comes to the average asking rent for all property types in Canada. And this is the historical chart here. And I've drawn a trend line because you can see June 2023, we're about the same level. So they went up a little bit and they came back down again for all of Canada. And now we're at June. So 2 years back is where we're at. So they've dropped to 2-year lows. Now let's look at the Ontario data, the TREB data. The TREB data, we've had much bigger peaks, but we're back down. If you look at that, we're like into 2022, over 3 years, probably the spring of 2022 and further, 2021 to 2022. So we've really dropped in Ontario. So Ontario is leading the way when it comes to this rental market decline. And again, it's a slow grind down, just like the prices, but it is happening. And both national and Ontario. And Ontario's leading the way, but we're going to see more of that right now in the next bit of data. So annual change in average asking rent, all property types, all of Canada here. So you can see there was declines in 2020, a little bit of a decline in 2021 for June, and then we saw increases, and we've seen our first year of decline nationally for June in June 2025 for a few years. But again, we're going to look at Ontario's data and we're going to see how Ontario is leading the way and they're seeing more declines. So, yeah, the first, they had declines. They only had it in 2020. 2021, they saw increase, whereas nationally we saw a decrease. But we started the decline in 2024, where nationally we did see an increase. And of course, so we've had 2 years of June decline so far, where nationally we've had one. So Canada, again, setting the trend. This is what's going to happen in the rest of Canada. Again, it's just all the same cycle. House prices go up, speculation goes up, everyone buys these rentals. There's too many rentals. There's going to be even more rentals now with this CMHC program where they're purposely building or purpose-built rentals that they're creating all these units. There's going to be a massive rental supply. And it doesn't matter how many new people, because again, it's based on fundamentals where people can only afford so much. So these next charts here, this is comparing properties for lease and properties for sale. These are actually new listings over the previous years here, back to 2016, 2015. And the people, I always get this argument that, freehold and condos, usually freehold, but this is all data here. The prices won't come down because there's no more supply and it's the same amount of sales. And it is, look, if you look at the blue there, these are seasonal, so they go up and down, spring, summer, winter. And there isn't any new supply, right? It's looks like there isn't because look at it. It's the same thing, right? You could draw a line right across the top almost, and it's very similar. When you look at the for lease side, look at the leases. Well, this is because instead of places being available for sale, investors bought them when we had the run up in prices because real estate was the best thing since sliced bread, and everybody was buying real estate, new, used, it doesn't matter what kind of homes, and they were renting them out. So all our supply was taken up with leases. So people buy them and they put them up for lease, as we can see here. And I got more data to support this right now too. So again, it was just interesting comparing these two, but yeah, places for sale, new listings for sale hasn't really changed, where places for lease has increased dramatically. If you look back, it's gone up, 2 to 3 times depending on the season. Now let's look at this next chart here. This is yearly. So yearly, we can clearly see it here. Yearly, right across the top, maxed out at 350,000 listings. We actually had their best year ever for sale listings, for new listings for sale in 2024. 2025, we're on track to probably be more than that at this point. And yeah, look at the leases. The leases is still way up there too, but they've increased dramatically. So at some point, we will see the number of leases and the number of new listings for lease start to come down, I'm guessing, because that supply will go up for sale. And of course, that'll add to the for sale supply. And this is what happens because people are not breaking even on these leases. They bought them speculating, thinking that real estate will always go up, but they're taking massive losses, many of these landlords. So that supply is going to turn back into for sale instead of for lease. The next chart here, I'm just focusing on freehold because, again, this is the argument I have. They're not making any more. There's no more inventory. Well, there's our inventory. If you look at 2024, we don't have all the 2025, obviously, right now, so I didn't include that. But 2024, we have 83,000 places for lease and 266,000 places for sale. And look at back in 2015, we almost have the same amount for sale, but only 28,000 for lease. So we're seeing, these properties, they're available, but they were bought up by investors, and now they're for lease instead of being for sale. So it looks like there is no more, or there's less inventory. The inventory hasn't changed, I should say, but it actually has. Let's look at this next chart here. Same data, but on a 100% chart. And in 2015, 10% of the listings were for lease. 90% of the new listings in freehold were for sale. Now, this year, 75% are for sale listings and 25% are for lease approximately. Every year, we have less and less of the market share that is for sale because it's been turned into rentals because of speculation. And again, this is all because of low interest rates and, again, government policies you could blame too. And the last chart here on the leases, residential transactions, sales versus leases. This is the number of transactions that actually have sold. This is not new listings. This is your actually completed transactions. And this really shows the data very well. And look, green is for lease or leases that have been leased, and sales are in the blue. And look at that. Look at when it really split or changed. It was in 2022. And yeah, right in whatever middle of the pandemic. Again, low interest rates right before that, they both shot up. But of course, all of the people that bought those homes owned them, and for rentals, all the investors, I should say, bought them, owned them, and people can't afford. So this is why we're seeing less and less sales. People just can't afford these homes. Now, it does look like it's maxed out there and that it is turning around, as we saw in the earlier data with the new listings, especially. So hopefully this turns around and we see a lot of these leases come for sale, which I'm sure we do. I see them on the market all the time. They used to be rentals, and now they're just, yeah, they're sick of the tenants, or they're not making money, or whatever. They need to sell it, or the bank took it over and the bank needs to sell it. Actually, I just got contacted by a client about one just around the corner from me, and it's priced pretty low. And I looked, you have to wait 2 days to get in because there's tenants in there and the bank wants to give them 2 days. Actually, it's not a bank, I should say. It's a private lender. It's a private person, actually. But yeah, they're not paying the mortgage, and it's power of sale. And the owner, the private lender, is selling it. But yeah, this truly shows what's happened. And it's when things become unaffordable. And I just posted on X today about this. And the problem is, when house prices become unaffordable, it's because they've been driven up past the fundamentals of being affordable. And of course, investors or speculators, I should say, buy them up thinking, hey, it's always going to go up. And, I'm just going to sell this for double what I bought it for in a few years. Well, and this is why they're holding on to all these rentals, and the supply has been eaten up by investors. And I said, we never really had a big supply problem. We had a demand problem, an artificial demand problem spurred on by low interest rates. And last chart here, now this is on the sales side of things. So this is the Toronto Real Estate Board, all property types, all areas, sales to new listings ratio. And yeah, look at, this was yesterday. So the 28 days in July at 34.6%, the worst in over a decade by far. So nobody is buying these places because the fundamentals don't make sense. They're too expensive. And this is why the sales are so low. It's not because people haven't even lost their jobs yet. Like, unemployment's not that high. If you look at my home buying recipe, it hasn't moved in a while, right? It's at 6.9% or something right now. But again, when that happens, that's going to affect us even more. But it's because people just can't afford these homes. I get calls from people with good jobs, good careers, and they're like, John, I don't know how people can afford these homes. Like I make really good money and I can't afford a home, or they don't want to afford it. It just doesn't make sense. So, and rents are coming down. So why would people buy when rents are coming down? And prices are still way too high. Prices need to come down like 30-40%, and rents can come down like 10%, and they still wouldn't be even. So we have a long road ahead of us, but it is going the right direction. But right now I see the rental market in a lot of trouble, and yeah, we're going to watch it and see what happens. So one last note here. So I do get a lot of calls and emails recently, and you might be watching some of you who've had these conversations. And it's like, is now the right time to buy? Should I buy? Because, there are opportunities out there. And you can, buy something without competing with a bunch of other people at this point. But it's a tough question to answer because everyone has different circumstances. But I always go back and look at the rent to price ratio for your specific situation, and then kind of put a target based on that on what price you should be paying. So yeah, check out the rent to price ratio, or the price to rent ratio, whatever you call it, and see how that compares to your certain situation. So if you're looking at an $800,000 house and you're renting right now for $3,000, take that $3,000, times it by 12, and divide 800 by that, and see what kind of a ratio you get. Look it up online. It's really easy to find that price to rent ratio. Anyway, that's it for this week. As always, leave your comments down below. I love reading them, good or bad. And until next week, I'll see you then.